guys, welcome to another episode of Heavy Thoughts. My name's Peter Pinto.
And I'm Jennifer Davis.
And this is FitLife Fusion here in Las Vegas. It is week 2 of National Nutrition Month, and we're continuing the conversation on nutrition. Last week we talked about the Ray Peat concepts within the dietary world nowadays. If you haven't heard, Ray Peat is a biologist who spent the majority of his life researching how nutrition affects one's physiology. So it's kind of created this movement throughout the training world, and I found it probably in the past 5 or 6 years, and now a lot of the conversations about nutrition all end up being around these concepts. You know, the Ray Peat stuff versus paleo versus keto. What other diets are there right now? Right?
Being vegan, vegetarian.
Yeah, there's a couple of new ones lately too. That somebody was talking to me about one the other day, and it was a diet I never heard of, but I don't know. There's always something new, it seems. But today we're going to get into a few questions that we actually threw out there to all of you on social media, and one of the questions that we asked was, what's the toughest thing about dieting? Right? And so you guys have hit us back on Instagram and Snapchat with a couple of things, and let's go over them, shall we, Jen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the very first thing in response to what's the toughest part about dieting is figuring out what to eat. So people ask me all the time, what should I eat? What should I eat? Right? And this is actually one of those questions that it kind of kills me a little bit. I mean, it's a very obvious question to get started off with, right? People walk in and they're like, okay, I just signed up for training, and we're going to, whether it's group or personal training, whatever. Okay, what do I eat? Right? And probably considering the differences in how we tell people what to do versus, you know what I mean? What they would see, people usually assume, well, it's going to cut out sugar, right, and have lean proteins, and
not going to be eating a lot.
Right, and assume
I'm going to be hungry.
Right, and we could break that down a little further, right? What are your goals? Are your goals to put on good mass? Are you trying to lean out? Are you trying to just lose weight? Are you cutting weight for an event of some sort, whether it's athletics or like a show or a photo shoot? Right? These are all different things that people do. Some people are dealing with serious amounts of pain, and they have to adjust their diet to, in accordance to try to get out of pain.
Well, and even the people who, and this was my situation where eventually, because of all the other diets that I've tried in the past, I started hitting like walls or plateaus. So when you're at that place, you need to start making adjustments.
Right. I think the best way to get into answering this question is at least to go through what we consider our first step. We have 4 steps when it comes to helping people switch their diet over to try to, become healthier, right? That's the goal for us. We want you to become healthier first, check all those check boxes that we talk about, like get out of pain, speed your metabolism back up, so bring, your body temperature, heart rate to a healthier place. And then just, things like being happy and being able to sleep well and having energy, all of that. Check all those boxes off. And then we'll say, then we can look at, whatever the end goal is for you. But anyway, the 4 steps, number 1, is choosing the right foods, right? So switching out foods that are better for you and switching out foods that aren't so great for you. We'll get into that in a second. Number 2, we start helping people out with the ratio of protein, fat, and sugar. Those are macronutrients, right? So figuring out how much protein versus fat versus sugar in any one given meal is kind of step 2. Get people used to eating foods that are going to at least be pro-metabolic, and then figuring out what they need. 3rd, we go into how much and how often you need to eat in any given day. Right?
Yeah.
And at the end, I call it our troubleshooting phase. That's the micronutrient phase. So vitamins, minerals, and that can be a very individual thing.
Yeah.
And that's why it's usually the last step. So you get a good base, and then you move on to, stuff like supplements. Because let me tell you, and Jen will be right there with me. Supplements aren't always the best choice to just get started with. There are some things that people can take that will help them through the process, but a lot of the time people will take supplements that in general are really good for you, but without a good nutritional base, they just don't get the results or get the benefits from them, right? We were just talking about this the other day.
Well, it's just, you might not need it. You might be taking a supplement for calcium or for vitamin A when you don't need it. So and that's, I think, one of the hardest things that people deal with when they diet is actually having good body awareness and really learning about yourself and what your body needs. Because what I need, might be different from what you need. So wrapping your mind around just that concept is huge. And you'll actually get farther and have faster and better results just thinking like that.
But even on the other end of the spectrum, we were just talking about...
I'm sorry.
Right?
That's not what he was thinking about.
Yeah. Oh, well, yeah. No. You made a good point. So I'm not trying to backpedal off of that. But I'm just saying that we were talking about, and this is what I brought up, some members who will take supplements and then we'll say, hey, these are the results you should be experiencing if you get on them. And then they're like, oh, it's not working. But nothing else in the diet is right. They have they're constantly throwing wrenches into the gears, right? Right. And that could be anything from a drink from time to time, alcohol. It could be foods that are high in polyunsaturated fats, right? PUFA, we'll refer to it. Grain, too much fiber. Mm-hmm. So if you got a lot of shit in your diet that's going to really upset your stomach, it's going to mess with your digestive tract. It could slow down the energy production rate. Then it doesn't really matter how great the supplements are that you're taking. Yeah. Right? Because
everything's a balance.
Yeah.
And it's about finding balance. So like Peter said, if you're eating crappy over here, but you're expecting these, if you're already in a stressful state and then you start taking these supplements, but you're still eating crappy, these supplements aren't going to help or fix the issues that you're already dealing with and the extra load that you're putting on eating crap, and now you're working out, and now you're trying to juggle, daily life. Nothing happens in isolation, so everything works off of each other. So finding balance is, it's tough, but it's definitely achievable.
Yeah. Absolutely. Probably the first thing that we can say, if we can give you just one big tip here, is you're probably not eating enough, and that's causing most of the problems. And this isn't usually something that you hear out of a trainer's mouth when you go into a gym, or if you're working. Sometimes with nutritionists, right? They'll say, you're probably just not eating enough. You need to get more of the right things in your system. But even still, in my experience, when I've worked with clients who come from working with nutritionists, their caloric intake is still way low.
Too low.
Way low. We usually tell people, let's just say a woman of 140 pounds, 150 pounds, coming in here for the first time, whether they worked out in the past or not, we tell them we want to try to start you off at about 80 grams of protein and see where you are there. 80 grams of protein is probably minimum, no matter what size of the adult. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Right? And then after that, because how much protein you get in a day really drives liver metabolism. Right? Your liver has a lot to do with your metabolism. So if you've ever heard the term liver metabolism, right, there's a reason why that term exists. Yeah. So getting enough protein in is probably the number one thing. On the other hand, and this is what we talked about last time, and this whole debate on sugar,
right,
is if you don't have enough sugar in any one given meal to deal with the insulin response required to store things like proteins and fats, then you'll go low in blood sugar during the meal, and you have this big stress response, adrenaline and cortisol and all that other stuff to help get your blood sugar back up to level. And that's one of the things that you should be trying to avoid throughout the day.
Right. Different way of thinking.
Yeah.
It's definitely like, I know when you're going to be watching this, it's like, what?
Yeah.
But I mean, our bodies, that's our preferred source of energy,
Yeah.
is carbs. And it's interesting because that's one of the first things they tell you to give up in the world nowadays. And that's one of the first things your body calls for or demands.
Well, and this gets into one of the next questions, which is, when people say to us, yes, we like this idea of having more sugar in the diet, it's starting to make sense based on, the stuff that they're reading and the things that we say. But then the next question is, well, what's good and bad sugar, right? And the first thing that people always ask is, what about white sugar? What do you have to say to them about that, Jen?
So
before I go on a rant,
yeah,
that might put you to sleep waiting to talk again, right?
Okay, I'll just state the obvious, and then you can
Give it to him, Jen.
and you can run. Okay, so one, white sugar is not as processed as you might think, and there's also everything is processed nowadays. Okay. But when we have clients and they've come in and they're dealing with pain issues and whatever health issues they're dealing with, sometimes their gut is so inflamed that it can't even handle the fiber that is in fruit and juice. And so taking on white sugar, it's actually a more gentler way of bringing the metabolism and the body to a spot where it can handle more fiber, more
right,
juice,
giving a person enough sugar.
Yeah.
In order to be able to handle the load
Right.
of the meal.
Yeah, and there's a difference between, and we're not saying eat handfuls of white sugar, there's definitely going to be a balance. We're going to slowly move you into this direction. But once everything starts working, you can introduce things like honey and like juice and fruit. It's not as harmful as you're thinking and what you're led to believe.
This whole sugar thing nowadays, right? So it just reminds me of a story that I've never told really anyone. I think this is the first time that I brought it up.
Out loud?
Yeah, first time I've said it out loud.
I love when this happens.
And if he's out there and he's watching, this is an apology coming to you, buddy, to some extent. But I used to work at this place called Malibu Fitness in Connecticut, right? And so it was me and a bunch of what?
We have a Malibu place in
Malibu
Connecticut.
Fitness, just outside, in Farmington, Connecticut. Yeah, so it was a really nice place. It's a really nice place. Anyway, so, it was me and another buddy of mine, and, I was fighting at the time, and, we were all meatheadish and stuff. And we lifted to be lean and get big and be strong and all that stuff. And there was this trainer, this other trainer, and his mother both worked at the gym. Now, the trainer was younger than I was. So I was maybe 25, 26. This kid was 20. He was definitely a little different. Kind of had that little arrogantness, but so did we, that little arrogance. And so we butted heads about things. And one of the things that he would say is he's like, no, my mom says that sugar is not that bad. But it's far less risky to have sugar than have something like Splenda. And I used to be like, this kid's an asshole. What the hell does he know? No. But his mother was a biologist who worked as a nutritionist in the gym. Right. So we were all like,
gold,
this,
right?
I know.
That's like gold when you're thinking about it.
I know this. I know. I'm like, oh my
man.
God, who's the asshole now? But yeah, that was the thing that almost no one paid this kid any mind. And we just assumed that he was nuts, his mother was nuts, they don't know what they're talking about, and we were just like paleo all the way. You know what I mean? And thinking back to it now these are things that we talk about all the time. It's a risk versus benefit thing. So yes, if you're using something like Splenda or stevia even, now those aren't really equal, okay? They're not on the same playing field. Synthetic things, more risky. Stevia, not as big of a deal, it just doesn't have the calories, So stevia is it's a plant extract, right? But it can be 0 calories or 1 or 2 calories. And the problem with that is, again, if you lack sugar in any given meal, and you go low, if you go hypoglycemic, low in blood sugar, in that meal, then you have to respond with stress hormones that can accumulate over time and become degenerative, right? Or not become degenerative, but cause a degenerative effect in the body. And that is what we're trying to avoid. So, so to you, Ryan, maybe you were onto something. Maybe I was just.
Apologize to the
I
mother.
wasn't.
I think
I
it's
forget his
the
mom's
mother.
name, but I forget your mom's name. Well, I never said. You know what I mean? It was more him. Like we gave him more shit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but that's the
That sucks,
story.
because that would have been just a golden opportunity.
That's the
right
story.
there.
Yeah,
now
I
I'm
know.
a biologist right there.
Yeah, I know. I could imagine, right? And who knows?
Hindsight.
I mean, this stuff that Ray and other trainers and bloggers have been talking about now has been around for years. Ray has written books as early as the 70s. I think it was in Nutrition for Women that he wrote in the 70s or 80s. And he talks a lot about this stuff. So you see work like Danny Roddy and Rob Turner and who else? What's the guy? Matt. He's the one that he's written like a bunch of books. Matt Stone.
I haven't read.
And I just haven't realized that this information has been out for a long time. So thinking back only 12, 13 years, yeah, kind of a missed opportunity on my part, right?
That's okay.
Yeah. But anyway, getting back at least into, let's talk about foods, right? The foods to eat. Well, let's tap on the sugar one more time. The hierarchy of sugar, as I call it, okay, is the best types of sugar to eat would be whole fruit, moving to cooked fruit, fruit juices, honey, and then white sugar. But like Jen was saying, depending on how damaged one's gut is when they start, they might need way more. They might need to stick to things like honey and table sugar just to be able to get the amount of sugar that they need in their system. But there is a problem with there being, less minerals, less vitamins, things like that in it. So it's something that you want to work your way up to have primarily fruit in your diet as your source of sugar.
Well, and also like just hearing you talk, because I know people are going to be like, okay, but so for me, what do I need? Am I that person? How do I know?
Yeah.
When you are changing habits and you're trying to become healthier, be okay with the fact that everything's going to be testing on your part. Not everything is going to be cut and dry. And what you start out eating, like let's say your body can only handle, like applesauce, okay? And then maybe 6 months from now, or even like 3 months from now, you might be able to handle like oranges. You might not have the negative symptoms that you would or that you had before. So just know that through this, like, it's going to be changing.
Yeah.
You know?
Symptoms like being bloated, symptoms like, anything from constipation or diarrhea, all that stuff. It's not, or even taking heart rate and temperature.
Yeah.
And this is gold, by the way, all right? And I've said this in a few other videos, but I don't think there's any problem ever repeating this. If you take your heart rate and temperature before a meal, and then you eat the meal, and 15 minutes after you eat the meal, because it takes 15 minutes for your oral temperature to come back to body temperature after you eat something hot or cold. If you do that, and no doctor has ever argued this point with me, if your heart rate climbs and temperature drops, that is a sign that you are producing adrenaline. Now, the only reason why you would be producing adrenaline is because your blood sugar level dropped. And this is one of the most useful tools when it comes down to figuring out what you should be eating, at what ratios, at how much, and how frequently. That's probably one of the biggest things. So when we tell you, okay, you want to have proteins that are, stick to reds instead of white meat, right? Because there are more risks to the white meat, especially the way that it's handled and processed nowadays. Stick to fruits over starches and grains and stuff like that. Or stick to saturated fat versus polyunsaturated fat. So things like coconut oil and butter versus seeds and nuts and the oils made from them. The thing that we're getting at is you don't necessarily, we'll give you a start point, but what exactly to eat, we can give you this in general, these are the things that you want to eat, but then it's just a testing process. It's a testing process.
Yeah.
Because I can say that milk and dairy is great for you, but not always do people do so well right off the bat with it. And even if they want to try to condition their body to be able to handle it well, it's still, some people, no problem, they can start handling it. And other people, it still takes time, or they can only do so much. So
that was something, sorry, I'm going to interrupt
Yeah,
you
no,
just
no.
real quick. That was something that I really appreciated when I really started learning eating in a way that is that increases the health of your metabolism, was that just lost it.
You just lost it?
I'm like, okay, what did you just say?
I was talking about the testing factor. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
So-
and fixing. Oh, and
Yeah.
okay, there it is. Because I used to, when I was growing up, I was always said or told that I was lactose intolerant. So just stay away from dairy. And when learning to eat like this, all of a sudden you give yourself like permission to test and to try different foods, and to know that you can fix things. Just because you have an issue with dairy, that it's actually not permanent. That was a new concept for me, because as you're told, like by doctors or just wherever, that okay, I got to stay away from this, and it's like, well, instead of masking or just completely taking away the food, say, you know what, I as a human should be able to metabolize dairy. Let's fix that. And it really opened up a world for me. You become happier because you get more food choices. You actually become healthier because if there's an issue of metabolizing any type of food, you're having some type of issue. But that was actually just, it was rewarding and refreshing, actually.
When I switched over from your typical protocol type diets, like Atkins, like Paleo, like Primal, all of these things, even keto, there are very specific rules for everyone. So it doesn't really differentiate. Even the eat right for your blood type diet. Okay? If you're this blood type, then it doesn't matter where you grew up, who your parents are, what it just matters that these are the foods you need to eat, and these are the foods you need to stay away from. Whereas really everything is testable. And especially coming from a neurology background with the Z Health education system, that's all we're ever saying.
Yeah,
everything's testable. So if I say something's bad or good, you still don't have to take my word for it. You can just test it. Whether it's taking your heart rate and temperature before and after a meal, or whether it's doing muscle testing or checking range of motion, whatever it might be, you can still test these things. So I like the idea of really having control over figuring it out, as opposed to just reading in a book.
Yeah.
I hate being told what to do. You haven't figured. Jen's looking at me smiling. She knows. She's like, can't tell Pete shit. Can't tell him shit, because that's how it is. And that's part of the reason why it just blended so well with what we do here.
Yeah.
I don't want people to come through the door and just be okay with being told exactly what to do.
Yeah. In fact, I have clients that, nutrition clients that they test me. They're constantly asking questions. And in my head, I'm like, just do it. However, they're asking questions, and that's a good thing. And it actually makes me better. It sharpens my skills. But it's true, you have to ask questions. And that's what we're telling people. Why are you staying away from sugar? Like, has that worked for your benefit? Are you that person that goes and hides?
How's that working for you?
How's that working for you? Are you that person in the middle of the night that goes and sneaks into the fridge and gets some type of sugar or ice cream or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
That's no way to live.
Yeah.
A closeted, sugar lover?
I've known people who every night it was like their ritual to wake up and eat something sweet around midnight or 1 o'clock every night. And when you'd ask why, I said, it's just what happens. I wake up, I have a little something sweet, I go back to bed. And whether it's ice cream or whether it's cookies or whether, it's something that was just left over, that was what they needed in order to get back to bed. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to.
Right.
And some of those very same people ended up getting serious illnesses as
that's
they
a
aged.
bummer.
Yeah, but it makes sense. And I don't want to just, correlate one habit to being seriously sick, but there is enough evidence there to where if your sleep is getting thrown off, it's also evidence of you having higher amounts of stress hormone that result in them having to be secreted all day long because your blood sugar levels are going up and down because, again, bad foods, bad ratios, etc.
Well, and if your body's craving something, like listen to that craving. Your brain is telling you, I need more. Okay.
That's a whole nother topic.
That's a whole other topic.
It really is. We can sit and talk about that for a while and make people feel a lot better about themselves.
But just, listen to your body. Have body awareness.
I've had people walk in here. This is no shit. I didn't know what to do. They said, I have been diagnosed with being addicted to sugar. I've had 2 of those people.
I've never heard of that. That's crazy.
I've had 2 of those people say, I have gone to hypnotherapists and to be hypnotized so I don't crave sugar anymore.
That's a bummer.
Yeah. I'm like, no, I think you're addicted to oxygen. This, go back and see that hypnotherapist. See what they can do for you. Now, I think that the idea of sugar being so bad is just so problematic.
Yeah, take the time to learn what the brain uses as fuel and what the cells use as fuel. And you'd be shocked at the findings.
Recently, I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast with Gary Taubes. And though it was 3 of the most painful hours of my life, recently at least, listening to this all, it's still, I can't close myself off to just ideas that don't match up with mine any longer. I refuse to do that. I figure that if there is at least, for some reason, why it's popular enough for so many people to believe in it, I should at least listen and try to figure out what the arguments are, right, against it. Not just to make a fight for it, but really that's just how science works, right?
Yeah.
There's a theory, and then it's at least it's going to have some substance unless you can disprove it. And the thing about all of this work around sugar, or all this negativity around sugar, I've seen it in books called One of the 5 White Devils, right alongside of they
demonize it.
Yeah, no, it's
They demonize
serious.
sugar.
It's a serious claim right there, right alongside things like flour and whatever else. But these claims to demonize sugar make it really hard for people to try to sift through and figure out whether this is going to work for them. Because if you try, for instance, I had, and this is a story that I tell kind of often, I had a guy come in, he was 63 years old. He had just recently been diagnosed at the time with MS. And he was also diabetic. Very typically type 2 diabetic, big belly, hard belly, and probably close to about 300 pounds at 6 foot or 5'11", okay? Very, very sick. Ended up finding me after the doctor said, it's really, if you don't make a turnaround here and do something about it, then you should be planning for your own funeral type of thing. So we started off with the diet, and one of the things that helped get his blood sugar down was when we finally got the right foods into his diet, right? Having a variety of healthier red meats, eating things like bone broth soups, oxtail soup was one of the things that he would eat a lot, liver from maybe once a week, shrimp or oysters, that was his protein. And then we switched out anything that was sugary to, like instead of white sugar, because he couldn't handle it as well, we would go to fructose powder. And as a diabetic, because fructose does not require insulin to store, it's a lot easier for them, a healthier way for them to be able to get more sugar in their diet and not have this big dysregulation in blood sugar. So he would have to have about 3 to 4 times the amount of protein, 3 to 4 times the amount of sugar than protein and fat in any one given meal, so that he did not have an adrenal response in his heart rate and temperature.
Oh, wow.
3 to 4 times. So we're talking like 1 egg, he would have to drink approximately 24 ounces of orange juice. And within about 6 weeks, he was no longer diabetic on paper.
Oh, wow.
So when he took his, blood glucose, it was down at like 108, 106, and prior to that, it was 240, 260, 300 in the mornings. So it's usually a lot of the problems that people are facing are due to a lack of sugar in the diet, or due to a lack of sugar, not just in the diet, but in a person's body because of the other things that we're told to eat that block sugar metabolism, like nuts, like seeds, like vegetable oils, that cause all of these, dysfunctions.
In the cells.
Yeah, within the cells, which make up tissues, which make up the systems within our body.
Well, and to help absorb the sugar.
Right.
So if it's messing with the cell can't do its job.
Yeah.
Not absorbing sugar. Too much sugar is now in the blood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, really, if we could get anything across, because when people ask, well, what should I eat? First things first, we have to tackle this idea that sugar is bad. Okay? At least people would say, well, fruit's not bad. And when we say sugar, that's anything within the carbohydrate world. There are just sugars. Not all sugars are created equal, more or less. So if sugar has a whole ton of fiber in it, then there's more risk necessarily,
Depending on the person and their issues.
Depending on the person and the issues. Grain. Most people just don't do well with grain. Some people can tolerate it better than others, but in general, people don't do well with like breads and pastas.
Yeah.
But there are times too where there are things that are historically relevant, depending on the race or ethnicity of the person. So.
But you find all of that out just by testing heart rate and temp.
You really do.
How your sleep is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. I think one of the last things to bring up, okay, the other thing that somebody asks is like, what are good calories and what are bad calories, right? And this is another concept out there, right? The whole concept of empty calories. I don't necessarily think anything is empty.
I mean,
There's just no neutral.
Would that fall under the thinking, like, don't drink your calories?
Yeah.
Because that's something that, especially like because there's certain people that have to deal with the jobs that they're just so rigid that they don't let you eat. But they're allowed to maybe have a drink like behind the counter or something. I tell people to drink their calories.
Yeah.
Do chocolate milk.
Make your own.
Well, and make your own. And again, that falls under the category. You need to accept the fact that it is not wrong to eat calories. It is not bad to eat. It is not bad to eat throughout the day. So, and often. So you got to accept that it's okay to feed your body. And if you have a hard time getting your calories in, let's say you want to eat 2,000 calories a day, and you know that it's going to be hard for you, maybe drinking your calories is going to be a good thing. One of the things that I do, just because working in the gym and working with people, I don't have time to always sit down and eat. So what I do is I get a big old mason jar and I put orange juice and milk in it. I know people wig out about that, putting dairy and citrus together, but that's like, that's like orange creamsicle. So I don't know. Anyway, and then I just add like gelatin or collagen for extra protein and, sugar, whatever.
Yeah.
But I make it packed with dairy, so you're going to get calories in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When And I guess I think I got off track at some point when I was talking about not worrying so much about eating too. It's really a big deal. You got to get enough protein in to feed liver metabolism. That's number one. Then you have to make sure you're getting enough sugar in to make sure that your blood sugar levels aren't going up and down as you are consuming other nutrients, right? And then, depending on how active you are, you have to eat either more or less.
Or if you're stressed.
Yeah.
If you're going through a
what you might
stressful
think.
time.
Right, because stress, exercise, activity, whatever it is, all of those things, anything that is a stress requires energy. And therefore, you would need more fuel for that, right?
Yeah.
So, I guess, to try to cap all this off, right? Because it's just so easy to go on so many different tangents when it comes to this stuff. When it comes to what you should be eating, first of all, make sure you are getting enough protein in. Right? We always tell people red meats are actually healthier than going with white meats, and the reason why is most fowl nowadays, especially chicken, the feed, they put a lot of crap in the feed for the chicken. Like there in 80%, I believe the number was, and something I read a while back. 80% of all chickens in America are being fed with arsenic in their feed, right? There's things like that. Even if you get a nice, free range, pasture raised chicken, the type of fat that they store is very unsaturated. So we say, stay away from the skin, try to stick to breast instead of having wings or thigh, and then having some organ meat is actually really healthy too, because there are certain amino acids in organ meat like liver or in like bone broth and things like that we just don't get from, most of the problems with protein is just the offset of amino acid, of the ratio of amino acids, in the fact that we just stopped eating the entire animal over maybe the past 100 years or so. I mean, still in some places in the U.S., they still do, but almost everybody just, sticks to New York's ribeyes and fillets. So
you're not getting the collagen.
But again, I digress. We could go into more stuff like that, right? But reds over whites, shellfish over fish, and maybe we'll just kind of leave these out as statements that we can continue having conversations with, and you guys can ask questions based on the statements that we made, so we don't go way over time with all of this information. Reds over whites, meats, shellfish over fish, fruit over starches and grains, and then saturated fats over polyunsaturated fats, right? Yeah. So coconut oil and butter or ghee and animal fats are going to be the preferable fats as opposed to getting nuts and seeds and vegetable oils. And you can actually watch one of my more recent videos on our YouTube channel specifically about fat, and we can make more sense out of that. But those are the three major things, you know. So I think, how about I do this? I think we should actually we'll create a blog post with just a list of foods that we give to our people. We already have the list all printed out that we give to people in here. I think we'll create the blog post. So any of you who've tuned in today for this episode of Heavy Thoughts, you can go to our blog at FitLifeFusion.com and put a little banner right up here. Okay, you can head to the website, and I will put up a food list of the things that we recommend to get you started.
Oh, very nice.
All right,
sounds good.
All right. Do you have anything in conclusion to say?
No, that was it. Just because I know it's going to lead into other things.
It is going to lead into a ton, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much controversy. But honestly, it's an uphill battle for us. It's a lot easier to let people come in the gym, feed them a bunch of unsaturated fat, lean proteins, and totally get all the sugar out of their diet. They suffer. They think it's okay. They lose a ton of weight because their body's eating itself. And then when they plateau or whatever, we just tell them they're not working hard enough. Because that's an easy way to retain clients too. Because then they just blame it on themselves. They need more work. They'll pay us more because maybe I need more training. Maybe I need more coaching. And I felt like that was really the world that I came from. And when I found out this information, I just couldn't go back.
Yeah.
You know? I felt like I was truly violating people if I knew this information and then said, okay, come in, cut all the sugar out of your diet, eat plenty of lean protein, really try to stay away from fats, but if you're going to have fat, nuts and seeds, right? Handful of almonds. You know what I'm talking about. People lean out, but they do so at the cost of their metabolic function, which then could line you up to you having cancer 15 years earlier than you would have if you had never met me.
Right. Autoimmune diseases.
Yeah. Everything, every illness out there, you know, regardless of how much of a genetic component you believe it has or you're told it has, really has everything to do with
what you're feeding your body,
how well your metabolism functions, which breaks down to how well you're feeding your body.
Yeah.
Right? So, all right, guys, that's it.
This tangent's over.
This one, yeah, I know. Like, it's Tim Ferriss calls it like a game of tangent leapfrog or something like that. Yeah, it's and he's probably one of the best at it. If you ever listen to his podcast, but yeah, I don't know how good we are at it, but we definitely are good at, you know, running tangents left and right.
Getting on our soapboxes.
Exactly. So anyway, let's just throw this out and put the ball in your court, everybody. Go ahead and ask us questions based on what we were talking about. If you think we sound nuts, throw it out there. Just whatever it might be. If you agree or if you've had any experiences like this, then let us know in the comments below. All right? So till next time, I'm Peter Pinto.
I'm Jennifer Davis.
This is FitLife Fusion, and hopefully we've left you with some heavy thoughts. Till next time.
Very good.
Boom, Jen. Fist bump.